Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Courtside with Christy and Gabe right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I am Christy Winter-Scott, joined as always by my guy, Gabe Ibrahim. Gabe, it's 2-0, baby. The finals, oh my gosh, best of 5 series in favor of the Aces. Are you surprised?
That's a great question.
To start off things,
I think I'm a little surprised. Not that the Aces won.
Mm-hmm.
I think them running away with the game in the way that they did was very surprising.
Yes.
And, I think you can look at either team, right? And point to one thing. So it was 85-71 was the final.
Yeah.
You can look at to the Aces and say, well, Kelsey Plum got going. And, that's exactly what happened. Like, she got going, she made the difference.
Yeah.
That's why they were able to blow them out.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more on the Connecticut side where they're kind of kicking themselves saying, our defensive rotations weren't as crisp. Our rebounding wasn't there. Our, offensive energy. It was, I actually thought the offense was more or less similar. They just couldn't get DeWanna Bonner going. But it was on the defensive end where I was really surprised at some of the miscues, some of the mistakes, and just like, it didn't feel like Connecticut Sun basketball on that end throughout the game.
No, absolutely. And I think, defensively a couple of times, or more than a bushel of times, you're talking about the rotations. How about forcing A'ja Wilson to her right hand? And not that, the percentages go down like a smidge when you do that. However, you can't let her get downhill from the nail, Gabe, more than once. Okay, I can see hey, things happen fast. I get it. But she's the MVP of the league. I was astonished that she got wide open on the left elbow and turned around and looked shocked that she didn't see a wall of defenders there. And you were on the post-game call last night. I asked her last night, were you surprised?
Yeah.
Not to see anybody right there. And she said, to be honest, I have never seen no defense when I turn around. And she was just blatantly honest. And that was more than a miscue to me. That was lack of focus. That was lack of being deliberate mentally on the defensive end. You needed to split on the road. You were in a 3-point game going into the fourth quarter. How do you not, even with that, because those things happened all game long. It wasn't just that they happened down the stretch and all of a sudden they just lost their focus. That kind of missed coverage was happening throughout the game from the jump ball, right? So this wasn't something that, they were clicking and clicking. It was a 3-point game going into the fourth and all of a sudden the bottom fell out. That was not the story of this game, right? Mm-hmm. It was throughout the game. Unfortunately for them, it was, back against the wall situation, headed home though, but still back against the wall when they could have had a split in Vegas.
Well, and before we get too far into it, I do want to remind people, subscribe to the Her Hoop Stats YouTube channel. If you're following us, if you're listening to the audio only, drop us a like, drop us a comment. I didn't stream this because I totally forgot to promote it. And I wanted to see something. So that's why we're not doing the live stream. Well, I think we're going to be back live streaming on Thursday because I'll be in Connecticut for Game 3.
Let's do it.
Perhaps the final game of the WNBA series season, which would be incredible.
Yeah.
But to your point about Connecticut's lack of focus, I think they seem to over adjust to what happened in Game 1. I think they got a little too cute by half. And I think that's easy to do in this situation, right? Where you're saying, and it's the exact thing you said, right? They needed this game. There's no way around it. They needed this game if they wanted to win this series. Now, of course, crazier things have happened than the Connecticut Sun winning 3 straight games in the series.
Yeah,
absolutely. But you look at it, and I'm very confident that the Las Vegas Aces are going to win the championship right now.
Yeah.
But I think for Connecticut, I think they just got so in their heads, and they said they found problems that weren't there and forgot the things that kept them in that Game 1. Which and you gotta give credit to Las Vegas first and foremost.
Absolutely.
I think Vegas took them off the boards in a really big way. So in Game 1, 13-6 advantage on the offensive glass for Connecticut.
Yeah.
In game 2, the offensive glass was 6-2. So great job by Connecticut, by Vegas to keep those Connecticut bigs out of the paint.
Yeah.
But there was just like you're saying, like Asia Wilson's wide open at the elbow. And I think that's because they had adjusted to worrying about, okay, Chelsea Gray getting to the elbow. Oh, we have now Kelsey Plum's going off. We have to adjust again. It's like sometimes I feel like the easiest thing in this series, and this is what happened in the Chicago series to this team, was they just kind of said, you know what, we're gonna play basketball. We're going to play basketball. And then if we play basketball, we're going to have a much better chance in this series. And I'm not trying to say Kurt Miller hasn't done a great job with this team. That's not what I'm saying. I actually think he did too good of a job. He had too many ideas. And I don't think it all got through to the team. And I think that their execution suffered. And then it's back to my whole thing about the quicksand speech from the movie The Replacements. One thing goes wrong, another thing goes wrong, another thing goes wrong. And then by the end of the game, you're drowning.
Yeah, holes in the boat. That's what I say
half
the time. And then they're trying to patch and fix. And meanwhile, the main thing's not the main thing anymore. And the main thing for Connecticut, yes, the defense was subpar in a lot of ways. And maybe there was some over adjusting. There was some hard hedging. And I know Becky Hammond is a savant when it comes to picking that apart and making reads.
And Chelsea Gray, too.
Oh my God. Like, that double stagger away to the ball screen and the roll and the dive weak side. Anyway, I can go on and on. I have it written down, for whatever reason, because I'm not coaching right now, but still I love to see when things work out that way. But the way that Becky Hammond dissected all of those changes from Connecticut and Kurt Miller in that way, it was just masterful. And it was really fun to watch that chess match of what was happening for both coaches and how they were trying to fix it for their team and give their team a chance to win. So, I mean, when you're looking at Connecticut, again, I'm going back to what we said when we were talking about the preview of this final series, is that Jasmine Thomas. I mean, they miss her, man. And and she's running right now, which is
it's awesome.
That's my girl, DMV, Oakton High School represent. But for her, I just think they're missing another offensive weapon, or not necessarily someone who could put the ball in the basket, but when they need some offensive organization, they're missing that. I mean, Heidemann has been off the mark offensively too. For as rough as DeWanna Bonner has been playing offensively. Yeah. I mean, 1 for 9 in both games, 1 for 9 in game 1, 1 for 9 in game 2, correct?
Yeah. 5 points, 2 for 18 from the field this series.
2 for 18. That's the only player for Connecticut who has won a championship in the WNBA. So you're relying on her. And some of those shots are open looks. And I think Kurt Miller, he said that a little bit post game. He said, some players have the ability to knock in open shots. And I was like, because Bonner had open looks, especially early on, like 0 for 5, I believe she started. Most of them pretty much in rhythm, wide open looks that she makes normally. And they weren't going down. And then he said something about Chelsea Gray being able to, with the ability to make tough contested shots, is a different level player. I mean, her shots, and we'll get into her, but just with what Connecticut was missing on the offensive end, you don't have Heidemann knocking in her shot that she normally makes, a 40% or more shooter this season from 3 outside the playoffs, right? And then you have Bonner, who is their only WNBA champion, who you're really relying on to offset the pressure, if you will, for AT, Alyssa Thomas, and Jonquel Jones, who have been great. I think those two have been playing well. They need support, especially from the perimeter, and that's where I think they miss a player like Jasmine Thomas. Again, not just her scoring ability, but her ability to organize them on the offensive end so they don't have empty possessions, but also let her set the table and set her teammates up so they're more in rhythm. They just seem so disjointed on the offensive end. And in that fourth quarter, it really showed itself.
Well, and you could see Kurt grasping at straws there. I mean, as much as I love Nia Clouden, I really do. She came into a final series after not playing game 1 and not really playing in these playoffs.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a recipe for disaster to put a player like that into that situation. And yeah, she got burned by Kelsey Plum because of course she did. I mean, I think I didn't think the thought was
Mhm.
that crazy. I just thought they're grasping at straws at that position because of the lack of Jasmine Thomas and because DeWanna Bonner can't get going. If she's shooting well, that becomes less of an issue to not
Yes,
have your point guard. Then it
exactly.
becomes much easier. But
Yeah.
I think the player who was really going after it on offense, as we have always mentioned, was Courtney Williams. I mean, 18 points from her. She had a great
Good
game
ball.
too, especially in response to that game one.
Yes.
And she's always gunning for it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the real stat the biggest stat here for this game, and it's a stat that Kurt has been talking about throughout the playoffs, is points in the paint.
Yeah.
Aces, 46 points in the paint, Connecticut 28.
I mean, that was the difference. Oh my gosh. And I think
Uh,
there was a timeout. I can't remember what juncture
Yeah.
it was, but Becky Hammond was like, it's 24-12, us in the paint. I love it. And I was like, man, I'm like, who wouldn't want to play for Becky Hammond? God, man. I mean, she just has that energy exuding in those huddles, and she just empowers her team. And Greg Popovich was there too.
Yeah, that was fun.
And that was so awesome to hear him speak to the team afterwards. And I love what she has been able to do there. That's why, she's coach of the year. That's why Asia Wilson's MVP this year, because of that kind of thing. And I mean, Chelsea Gray, God, man, she is elite. And we knew that, but she's just solidifying her role in this league. And, for her to roll her ankle and the team not miss a beat, I mean, that just speaks to the chemistry and trust of this team.
And coaching.
And of all, they trust one another. It's reciprocal, goes both ways. And, hopefully Chelsea Gray, hopefully it doesn't, blow up on her. They flew charter last night. So they get
she looked fine.
She looked fine.
She looked fine in that fourth quarter.
Oh, after she rolled it, she got a bucket and was like hyped, and she put her jacket on and like, oh yeah, that sit and spin was going. I was like, go ahead, Chelsea Gray, have yourself some fun. I mean, she's just playing great basketball right now, and she's on another level when it comes to being a striker in clutch moments. And clutch moments aren't just at the end of the game. Okay, let's trust and believe that clutch moments happen in momentum swing moments. And she was swinging that momentum all game long, all series long, all playoffs long, all season long.
Yeah, really.
Kelsey Gray is a flat out dog.
She's on a different planet. She's on a different level right now. Like I tweeted this yesterday. I've never seen anything like this ever. And then I've watched a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Dwayne Wade in the 2006 finals, and older WNBA fans, if you guys have someone to let me know like exactly what, maybe there's probably an Angel McCoughtry series, but she never won the final, so it's hard to equal it with Chelsea Gray. So if you have someone that has done this from the mid range, where she has, how like the sliver of space she's trying to get to, is free throw line at the elbows, maybe give or take a couple feet. So we're talking about like a 4x8 foot box on the court. Everyone on the court knows that she wants to get there. Everyone in the stands, every coach, every player, everyone in the stadium and watching at home knows that she wants to get to that spot. It's impossible to stop her from getting that spot, and it's impossible to contest the shot enough such that she's going to miss. This is beyond the pale, I think, of something we've ever seen, because it's not that she's getting to the free throw line a lot. It's not that she's getting to the rim a lot. She's playing great team basketball, being unselfish, finding her teammates, but it's all coming from that mid-range. I mean, we haven't seen that. At the very least, we haven't seen this in the modern revolution of basketball in the past, 10 years.
Yeah, no question. When you were saying that, I was just running through my Rolodex in my head of names from the past in the WNBA, and Deanna Nolan is a player who stands out to me in that regard. Swin Cash even mentioned her in her Hall of Fame speech. I just think she had that ability in the mid-range to crush your spirit. And that's what Chelsea Gray is doing right now. But the difference between Deanna Nolan, Tweety Nolan, as she's affectionately known throughout the league, the difference is Chelsea Gray's body strength is just amazing. And it's so dominating. If she gets a piece of your hip and she's trying to bump you, I mean, she's like a post player with guard skills. I mean, she's 6 foot. I mean, what, 5'11", 6 foot. But she is like a wall when it comes to getting down here, getting a piece of your body, moving you, bodying you up, and then rising up on you with her footwork that has just been amazing. And her release is so high. So it's like, she's going to get that shot off. Even if you have a hand in her face, as you saw that one particular shot with Courtney Williams being banged. She's getting into her shoulders. And then Chelsea Gray just takes it up and over her. And her hand was like in her face, like directly in her face. And it didn't make a difference. And, that's just who she is as a player. But in terms of the mentality, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong or add somebody if you think. But Diana Taurasi-esque in terms of her Mamba mode. I mean, she wore a Kobe shirt walking in to game 2. Like, she tapped in to that kind of lock-in when it came time to dominate in this game. And, Kelsey Plum too, for that matter. I mean, both of them. But Plum's game she was getting to the rim at will, all game long. And apparently A'ja Wilson had some advice for her prior to the game. And that was pretty, I don't know. It was something to see post game to hear A'ja tell the press, all of us, what she told Kelsey Plum, which was to get your doo-doo together.
Get your stuff together.
Yeah,
put it in a box and get it together.
Yeah, but in a way, I understood what Kelsey was saying. Like she said people were praying over me. People were rubbing me on the hand like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's going to be okay, baby. But then here's A'ja saying, we need you to score. Yeah. Like, get your stuff together and let's go. We need this. We need you to score so we can win. And I was watching the nonverbal of that exchange, and Kelsey's face. I know she appreciated it, but I think it hurt her.
Yeah,
it hurt her.
I mean, but
on some level, didn't it?
Of course it did. But you know what? A'ja was right. You need to get your stuff together. You can't go 1 for 9 in a playoff game, Kelsey. That's why we almost lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Because I think the best teams, in my opinion, the best teams, and this is again, I'm a Miami Heat fan. I'm a Katie Meyer fan. This is a big Katie philosophy. Is you gotta be honest at all times.
You do.
If you're not honest at all times, the trust is gonna break down. You're gonna see that on the court.
Yes.
If you're trying to manipulate or tell or try to do something in non-style, people are gonna understand that, and that trust is gonna break down, and then it's gonna break down on the court later. And that's what you really don't want.
No.
So to me it was like, yeah, of course you have to get your stuff together. Like, this is not a time for us to be hey, buddy, like look happy, whatever. No, this is not a time to smile. This is a time to get the buckets. And Plum did that. And like you said, her getting to the rim changed the entire face of the game. 20 points, 7 of 13 from the field, 7 assists though. And those came from those rim possessions. I think in game 1, she was a little tentative to get to the rim. Also, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Did I pronounce it right? Tentative. Okay, sure. But Plum, her getting to the rim was a huge deal. I think she settled for a lot of threes, and they were open, and she missed them in game 1. So I understand the hesitancy, and she got blocked a couple times in game 1 too. But this game, she was like, I don't care if I get blocked. I don't care if someone hits me in the head. I don't care what happens. If someone has a shovel down there, I'm still going down there. I'm taking the shovel to the face, because that attitude has been there all season for her. Yeah. And you can tell pretty much in the first, 5 minutes of the game, what kind of game Kelsey Plum's going to have.
Oh yeah.
And she just was in attack mode from minute 1. And I thought she was just absolutely stunning. I thought she really opened up all that space. And the reason why, I think, going back to the points in the paint thing, the reason why Vegas was able to dominate the points in the paint was because of Kelsey Plum. Not just because of A'ja Wilson, but that just opened up everything for everyone. and it was such a big game for her. And I don't know. I expected the response, to be honest.
You know what? I expected the response. Chelsea Gray tried to say the edited version, please, Asia, and Asia went explicit with it, which is fine. But like you said, it was the honest answer. But I'm not, and I'm saying this not from a negative place at all. Okay. Asia Wilson has stepped into her leadership role in this playoff series, not just in the finals, but in the playoffs all along. And she has said that she has realized the importance of that for the team. And I think she has every game, every possession of every game walked in that light. And I think it's really been fun to watch her mature as a competitor in that way. Excuse me. And as a leader in that way. I mean, I think she has been reluctant in the past, and not that she didn't know that her team needed it. I just don't think she knew how to lead in that way. And I think for her to gain confidence and to really utilize her voice, and she's saying, my team needs this from me. And to hear her say it that way, I'm like, she's owning it.
Mm-hmm.
She's owning it. And now her team sees the integrity of the statements that she's making. Yeah. And it's not personal, it's business. And the business is of winning. And that's why they're 2-0. And I love that Asia Wilson has stepped into her leadership and her, just her ability to do that. And people think, oh, if you're a leader of the team, you're scoring the most points. And I'm like, that's not what leadership is all about. No. I mean, that's some of it, but it's not statistical, right? It's emotional. It's emotional. It's mental. You can't go out and execute if your mind isn't right. And I think for Asia Wilson, not only to have her mind right, but to get everybody else's mind right collectively, man, that's a special talent. And I think, while she wanted to do that in the past, I don't think she had the blueprint for that or the confidence. And I'm saying that with love. I mean, you have to be able to have experience like anything, like losing helps you win, right? Mm-hmm. Wanting to lead and not knowing how, that helps you lead in the same way. And I think Asia Wilson has displayed that just in a marvelous way, especially in these 2 games so far in the finals.
Well, I think that mentality, I mean, how big is Chelsea Gray in that regard, right?
Yeah.
Having someone who's won a championship, who understands what it takes to get there, yeah. who was in the position of these other players, right? Because she in Los Angeles, she wasn't the leader on that team. And even earlier this year, I don't think most people saw Chelsea Gray as the leader, hence why she did not make the All-Star game, which was ridiculous.
Was ridiculous.
Ridiculous at the time, even stupider now.
Even more so.
But I think just coming in and being able to share that championship experience and like these players maturing, that's the one thing that with the Aces that we kind of forget, because Asia's been such a mainstay in women's basketball. Kelsey Plum's been such a mainstay in women's basketball that we forget that they're young. They're still really young. And so I think Asia going through the losses that she had to go through, yeah. Asia understanding that she the way she has to act and the way she has to be, and also having a presence that complements her in Chelsea yeah. Gray. I think yeah. that's a big deal because, Asia seems to me that she runs a little hot. I run a little hot. She doesn't seem to yell all that much, but she definitely runs hot. She definitely gets into it.
Yeah.
So you kind of, it's great to have someone who's just calm, cool, and collected, who's going to be able to explain things to the players when you can be that emotional leader. I think Kelsey Plum is in a similar spot where she, and she's talked about this a few times, like in 3-on-3, she really learned to just go.
Yeah.
Just go. Don't worry about it. Just go. And now on this team, she's opened up to be able to just go. And I think that mentality translates into how you talk to people, how you treat people in the locker room, and how you approach the game. If you're just thinking, hey, I gotta just go, whatever. If the shots go make or miss, it doesn't matter. I'm going. Yeah. And then I think it opens it up to everything. And then there's the trust factors and all those things that go into it. But this team is really together mentally. And I think it's showing up in the court in their execution. I mean, you look at there's a stat in the game that I'm putting up here. Mm-hmm. Plum, Gray, and Wilson all had 20 points last night. 4th trio in WNBA finals history to have 20 points each in a finals game. Also, I looked up another stat that I just wanted to share. because I was thinking about it.
I'd love it.
So Chelsea Gray is averaging 23.3 points a game.
Wow.
She is shooting 1.5 free throws a game. No player has ever done that in a playoffs.
Wow.
Over multiple games. It's never happened.
Wow.
At that level of free throws, at that level, and 20 points.
Oh my gosh. I
So
mean, that just speaks to who she is. What'd you say?
Well, it just that's why it's so incredible. She's not even getting to the line. She doesn't need to. And I think in this game, that's been huge in these playoffs, because in these playoffs, even more so than previous playoffs, the refs are letting people play.
Yeah.
Which is a big reason why Connecticut's here in the first place. But you got to be able to do stuff. You have to be able to get your points, not from the line. Well, Chelsea Gray has been doing that amazingly. So
yeah,
this trio push Vegas to the win. So you got just tip. I feel like to a certain extent, Connecticut has to just tip their hat, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at this point, and when you have speaking of point guard, Chelsea Gray, the fact that it's 1.5 attempts, like her and ones, that's when she gets to the line, is when she gets tagged, right? Yeah. And she's not the one falling. When she gets tagged, she's still standing, and whoever fouled her is on the floor. Like,
she tossed Natisha Hydeman last night.
Right. Oh my God. I mean, she's a powerhouse. And so, that's why I find it intriguing that it's like 1.5. I'm like, this is because the air ones. But I just think that she's just so tough when it comes to winning. Mm-hmm. And when you hear them say in post game, it's all about winning. Asia Wilson said, "Hey, I need my team to be at their best for us to win." And I'm like, period. Like, what else do you say? And Kelsey Plum said, "Yeah, people talk to me in all these different ways, but at the end of the day, it's how I talk to myself." Yeah. And I thought that was, very profound. So
what a lesson for all of us.
What a lesson for everyone. And the fact that she said she had a therapist, and she talked to the therapist like, I got all these voices coming at me. Like, I got the woo, I got to pray over me. I got Asia saying, get your stuff together, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, what's in my head? Because those games, I'm telling you, when you're in a game, you don't have time to be having some dialogue with yourself. You've got to recalibrate between each of these games, a day in between these games, right? And get it together. And I don't care what anybody else says to you. And it's nice and necessary, okay, in all those ways. But at the end of the day, man, what's your inner dialogue? What are you tapping into? Only you can change that part. Yep. And I thought that was so profound last night when Kelsey Plum shared that with us. I had both hands in there like, yes, Kelsey, yes. Like, that's what we all need to know in life, not just hoops or athletics or whatever, sports. But I just thought that was a really strong statement. Yep. But when it comes to the aces, I think Dearica Hamby and her presence on the floor too has been very necessary, especially game one. She played about 11 minutes, but came in and really changed the toughness of Vegas in terms of their physical play. And they know, this has been a physical series. Like you said, the officials are, it's both ways, right?
Yeah.
But what did she play? 18 minutes in game two? Yep. And really changed the landscape on the glass and defensively. And she looked more in rhythm. I mean, she had that week off in between the series. And I think that really saved her, because she was not looking physically ready in terms of her speed. But I think she got that back. I mean, and Becky Hammond said, that's my beast. That's my best beast, and if she can go, I'm putting her on the floor. And when she's out there, boy, she was effective and efficient for Las Vegas.
Well, and she just changes the calculus for Connecticut's defense, really, mainly. Absolutely. I mean, she's just not, with all due respect to Kia Stokes, she's not the same sort of non-offensive threat that Kia Stokes is. If Dearica Hamby gets the ball, you're pretty worried about what she can do with it. Almost anywhere on the court. She's not a great three-point shooter, but you're worried about the drive. You're worried about a lot of things. So you have to just cover her more. And I think that was a big reason why she was plus 16 in this game in her minutes. 4 rebounds. The numbers don't matter with her. That's not her contribution. Her contribution was the energy, the effort, making those little plays, getting steals, getting knocked. That was what sheer contribution was. And I thought she did it wonderfully. And I'm with you. I think that really changed the series when she came in game 1. And I think that showed something off to Vegas, and they exploited it in game 2. Now, I do want to ask you a question. How can Connecticut get back into this series? Because we saw, I think one of the things I talked about after game 1 with Ice and Dano was Alyssa Thomas being on Chelsea Gray more. We saw that a little bit, not a ton. We saw that big lineup, a fair amount for Connecticut in this game. I don't have the exact minutes in front of me, but a good amount in this game. That didn't work out quite as well as we hoped, and it worked out better in game 1.
Yes. So
Christy, when you look at it, just from the on court adjustments or whatever, you can talk about whatever you want. This is your show. How can Connecticut get back into the series?
Oh, wow. I think you're right. I mean, that big lineup, I think, really kind of got them back into game 2. And it was a 3-point game, as we said, going into the 4th quarter. But I think the zone from Las Vegas, okay, I thought Connecticut, with that big lineup, did a good job of picking that apart.
Yep. Yeah.
They really did execute well against that zone. Becky Hammond said as much as well. And I agreed. But when you have, when you make the adjustment after that, right, to stay man to man, which the Aces did, and I thought they manned up, right? They locked them, and that's how they opened up the game, because it was getting to a point where, hey, they're getting comfortable with this zone. With this big lineup, they're finding little divots right in there in the pocket, right under the free throw line. I know one time there was a lack of rotation to Alyssa Thomas was wide open right there. And I was like, oh, they just didn't shift and move on a string a couple times in that zone, but credit Connecticut for that. So with that being said, what can they do in game 3? I don't think that Vegas will show a zone again. Or if they do, they won't show it a lot. And if they do, they won't show it a lot when Connecticut has their big lineup on the floor.
Yeah.
I just don't think they'll see it as much because they were successful. So I think now it's Connecticut's turn to make that counter, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you're showing a zone. So Kurt Miller's like, all right, we're going to go big. And they got that momentum. They were manufacturing buckets and stops with that lineup. They were getting boards because they were bigger. In a couple of instances. And then Vegas said, okay, we're going to go back to man, so now it's Connecticut's turn. What kind of shift and move are you going to do? And for me, I don't know, like you said, there are a lot of adjustments. There's like this litany of all these things. And you don't, at this juncture of the season, want to overdo it with things and philosophies and ways. Get buckets to fall, like make your shots. You've got to, if you're Heidemann, if you are Dewana Bonner, you've got to make those shots. Dewana Bonner's got to make shots. I mean, I think that's going to be the key. I mean, we already see JJ and AT, they're double doubles. Like we're not worried about them. They're good. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Those other two for Connecticut, amen. And that's easier said than done, right? And I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but I don't think that it's anything philosophy-wise. I don't think it's anything tactically. I think when they go to that big lineup, then they have to continue to try to attack the paint. Yeah. And they've got to put the ball in the bucket. And it's going to be physical. Like, you're going to get hit. Like, we're already, let's not think like, well, we're going in the paint, we're going to hit. That's the finals. You're going to get hit. Like,
they love getting hit. Right. It's like there's been their thing all season.
You're going to get tagged, man. You're going to have to go through that contact and finish. And again, that's what Chelsea Gray was able to do well, right? She's going to take the hit and keep ticking. You got to take the hit and keep ticking. And you got to play it out and play to win. I mean, your back is against the wall. I mean, if you have to go in the locker room and say to Connecticut, and I'm not saying Kurt Miller has this in front of him. I'm just saying in general, if you're in an elimination game as a coach and you have to go in that locker room, Gabe, and say, come on, you guys, you got to play hard. Our backs against the wall. If that's what you start with, you're in trouble.
No.
Because that should be, that's common denominator. Your pros shouldn't have to say that to you.
Well, and to be clear, I know you think this too, but Connecticut didn't have an effort problem. There was not an effort problem. In my opinion, I don't know about you, but I didn't think there was an effort problem for Connecticut. I thought there was an execution problem and focus problem.
But don't you think effort and focus are the same thing?
No, because focus requires a different part of your brain than effort. I can run hard and my mind be a million miles away, right? I can't sit there and play help defense if I'm not really locked into what I'm doing and understanding, okay, this player's there. If I get caught up in thinking we need to stop A'ja Wilson, well, my player's running back door behind me, right? So that's why I think effort, and I could go as hard as I want at A'ja Wilson, but my focus has betrayed me because there's someone running behind me baseline to the rim.
Understood. But my thing is, okay, and I kind of said this before on here today. If you don't have your mentality in the right place. So for me, effort falls with mentality too. So that's why, I'll fine tooth comb it, Gabe, I will. That's part of it, right? That's part of it. And you have to be locked in physically. You've got to first be locked in mentally. So to me, there's an effort for that. So I think to me, that's what I'm saying. All of that is the same thing to me. Like, you've got to put effort into being focused and knowing that the cuts are going to be behind your head or what's going on. Yeah. Like, you got to be ready for that. And to me, like, your mental, like, your brain is a muscle. Like, you got that. You got to work that too. You got to work that too. And I think, I said something, I think during the Mystic season to head coach and GM Mike Tebow in the same way. Like, I always had this energy, effort, focus. Like, you got to have those three. Like, you can't. Those
go together.
You can't compete, right? And he said, but there's an alertness and awareness. And I'm like, take it, coach.
There's where the problems were. I agree with Coach
That's it. And that's why it's different than energy, effort, focus, because those are all, to me, those are common denominators that you should have. But then what you're saying, you got to be aware and alert. You got to be aware and alert. But that all, to me, is a very mental thing. And you have to be locked in to compete like that. And it has to be sustainable. It's not just, okay, you made a mistake and then the next time you don't make the mistake, but then you make it 4 other times. Like that, to me, you cannot be inconsistent with your awareness. Another Coach Tebow word there. It should be consistent. Like, you got to be consistent with your alertness, awareness, and then your energy, effort, focus should be right there behind.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easier too when the shots are falling, though, to have all of those things. Like, as much as we love talking about defense, and defense wins championships, and defense is the most important thing, and every team will always tell you, our identity. What's always the phrase? We hang our hat on our defense, or we have to have our pride on our defense or something. Everyone always says this stuff. Guess what? It's way easier to play defense when you're scoring and you're not only being set, but also just like the confidence of like, hey, ball went in, we can get a stop, right? So those things deeply matter. And I think that was one of those things that was going wrong for Connecticut that eventually got them in the end. So, to go to your point, first thing first for Connecticut to get back into the series, or at least win game 3, it has to be the execution from game 1 on defense has to be there. And DeWanna Bonner has to make shots. If DeWanna Bonner does not make shots, I'm going to the championship celebration in Mohegan Sun on Thursday, and I'm very excited for it. But I don't think DeWanna Bonner is going to miss another 8 shots. I think she's going to be able to get to the rim more. And I hope that she kind of takes some of that Kelsey Plum attack mentality that she's had in the last series. She's got to take that and get to the rim, and then get blocked there. I don't care. I'll go get blocked at the rim. If you get blocked at the rim, we get blocked at the rim. That's life. But I think she needs to get downhill, and I think she will. The other thing, though, and this is something we've been saying this for years. Jonquel Jones, 11 field goal attempts. She's 6 for 11. Jonquel Jones should never be 6 for 11. No. Jonquel Jones should either be 3 like 1 for 6 or, 10 for 20.
Right.
Like she needs way more shots than
Yes.
11 shots. Courtney Williams got 17 shots and she was looking good, but you need to figure out a way to get Jonquel the ball in ways that she can shoot. And I would say she passed up some open threes in this game. So maybe just a little bit more attack mentality from Jonquel would also be big. I mean, that's what kind of kept them in the 2019 finals.
Yes.
I think it starts there. It starts with the execution. It starts with getting back your identity, which is on the boards and on defense.
Right. And containment of the paint. I think that tip totally got turned by Vegas, and they took pride in that, right? Yeah. They went into that game with the sense of, we're going to spread you out and we're going to get downhill. And that's the first thing that Becky Hammon said after the game last night. The difference in this game was Plum's ability to turn the corner and get downhill and finish, right? And she got a couple and ones as well. So, the physicality is going to be there, but if you're Connecticut, you've got to do something to take away the paint. And that's will. I mean, that's not a defensive scheme. I don't care what if you go triangle into a zone, a man, like, I don't care. I don't care what defense you show, right? It's the lockdown defensive mentality that I'm looking for from Connecticut. And that's going to be a huge piece. Their ability to take away the paint from Las Vegas is going to be the linchpin to a win or not. And yes, shots need to fall. Heidemann and Bonner need to get their shots down. Period. Point blank. The end. Like, that's end of story. Yeah. But if they don't lock it down on the defensive end, it's going to be a tough game to watch, I think, because they've got to bring that spirit of sport. The reason why they were outside of their houses when they were little girls with that passion and love to play, that's what they have to show in this game. I don't care what defensive scheme, what, X and O wise. No, listen, it's about Jills and Joes right now. This is about your mentality. This is about your back against the wall. You're at home. You have all the reasons to lay it on the line. And if it doesn't happen that way, I don't know. You got to retool your approach because you have everything. Man, I'm fired up sitting here talking about it. I mean, you have everything laid out right there. You're down 2-0. You didn't shoot the ball well. Like, if I'm Bonner, man, we're down 2-0. We're going back home. I've won a championship before. I got to lead this team. And I don't care if and not statistically, but I've got to find a way to not woe is me myself being 2 of 18 from the floor. In these 2 games, my team needs me, and what we were talking about with Plum, the inner dialogue. This is what she's saying to herself. I am certain of it. And going back home, some of the interviews I've heard with Bonner, she says, I would love to bring a championship to Connecticut. And not just for me, not just for my teammates, but for Connecticut as a whole. So I know she's got that going on. In between her ears. And I'm anxious to see what that looks like on the court. Yeah.
And, I think to that end, look, if this is the end for Connecticut, I think you have to go out with the 5 players, really. DeWanna Bonner, Courtney Williams, Alyssa Thomas, Jonquel Jones, and Bree Jones. Yeah. Because it may be the last time we see these. I mean, let me rephrase. This finals is definitely the last time we're seeing those 4 together.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way all 4 of those players are back in Connecticut next year just because of math, salary cap. They can't afford all of them.
No.
Hey, so if you're going to go out, you run that lineup and you let them play and you let them leave it all out there, and you may lose, but you let them leave it all out there. You let Alyssa Thomas guard Chelsea Gray 94 feet for 40 minutes. She would love that. Right? It's like you let her go. You take off the reins from Alyssa Thomas defensively and just tell her to go. Now, the problem with the whole I know I think your point about the X's and O's is correct, but I do want to bring up one more. The problem with Alyssa Thomas on Chelsea Gray is that Alyssa Thomas is also somehow the team's best help defender.
Right.
And then there's not as much help behind you, but that, logically that shouldn't be that much of a problem because you have Bree Jones and Jonquel Jones on the floor.
Right.
And DeWanna Bonner, who's kind of a good help defender. So I don't know why that doesn't match up. I don't know if that's just like their scheme all season was to have Alyssa and help more, and now they have to put her on the ball more. I don't know, but that's one thing that I would love to see is just a little bit more help behind Alyssa. But, you know, you do have to leave it all out there. I think Alyssa, guard Chelsea 94 feet. Don't let her beat us.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work, but you should try. You know, DeWanna, you have to beat the mismatch because she's also the mismatch on the offensive end.
She is.
She's the area where they have the most advantage in that big lineup, and she's not doing it. And, you know, she had a post up, but I don't remember if they were able to get her the ball or if there was help coming. Right. But that, you know, I think that lineup has to be out there because you have to go out on some terms.
Yes.
It seems like game 3 or 4 is going to be where you go out.
Yeah.
I'd say go out with those 4 on the floor.
And you have to. And you were talking about Alyssa Thomas and her ability to match up with Chelsea Gray, right? In terms of strength, physicality, it's a great matchup. But Alyssa Thomas is also a great matchup on Wilson. So we need, you know, for Connecticut, do they need 5 ATs? Like they need 5.
They absolutely need 5 Alyssa Thomases. Never take a shot outside the paint. Oh God, Connecticut would love it.
Right. But like defensively, you know what I mean? Like defensively, Alyssa Thomas can guard multiple positions. And she's done a good job with forcing A'ja Wilson to her right. She's done a good job, you know, making it rough for her, muddying the paint up when Wilson gets the ball. But she's also a dog when it comes to getting up underneath and into Chelsea Gray. And I think you saw that down the stretch. And this was after Gray came back on the floor after her left ankle roll that she had, and went to the locker room, went back into the game. But when Chelsea Gray came back into the game, they had Jackie Young running some point. I don't know if you saw that, right? So a couple times they had Chelsea as the top screener away in
when
their
Connecticut was stagger
action. Yes. In their double stagger action, she was the first screener in that, instead of being the one coming off with the ball in that. So who knows, again, what Chelsea Gray, and hopefully she's just fine. And, you know, they're going to tape it up. She's definitely playing. I'm not saying she's not going to play. But, you know, will they take some pressure off of Chelsea Gray in that regard, taking her off the ball and letting Jackie Young run some point guard? And, I mean, when you have a player like Gray who can set solid screens, why not try that? And they did that. They executed so well. I don't know. That play is going to just ring in my head for days here now, because I'm going to look for it again in game 3, because it was just perfectly executed. They just baited Connecticut so well into the rotation that they wanted, and found A'ja Wilson on her strong side, on the weak side there, the left block, and she finished, you know, with her strong, dominant left hand. So I don't know. For me, I just think I love the game so much, and I love the inner workings of it. And I do love the X's and O's, and I do appreciate that. So I don't want to throw it all out the window. But at the same time, you know, it comes down to bearing down. Yeah. Like, you got to bear down mentally and just fight for what you want and show that passion. And it's okay to show that passion and frustration. Yeah. Right. When you have that passion and things aren't working out the way you want it to, you still have to fight hard, man. And that's what I want to see from Connecticut. And they've got to get buckets. They've got to get stops, and they've got to do a better job of containing the paint. Well,
I think this whole part of the conversation assumes that the little things that we talked about, those execution errors, are not going to be there for Connecticut. That the whole part of this discussion talking about the X and O's relies on not having those mistakes and having DeWanna Bonner make some shots. Those two things absolutely need to happen. If those two things do not happen, again, we're hanging out in Connecticut with the Las Vegas Aces, going to have a party. But
hey, FaceTime me if that happens, man.
I'm going to be there until the wee hours of the morning, regardless. I'm having fun. Whoever wins this game, I don't care.
If that happens, FaceTime me, man. We gotta go live if that happens.
Oh yeah, live from. I just think we'll talk about doing live. No, and I think here's just like another idea that popped into my head. And again, I'm a Miami Heat fan, so just like bear with me. Throughout this season, the Miami Heat ran some zones where it was Bam Adebayo at the point of attack. So right, he was the they run a very specific zone, and I'm not sure Connecticut has installed anything like this, so this may be a non-starter altogether. But if you put Alyssa Thomas at the point of attack in a 3-2-ish matchup zone, I think that could help just like stave off the onslaught of Chelsea Gray without having to put Alyssa Thomas in a fully non-help position.
Right.
Like you can get a lot more if you're able to just switch right before the elbow and have Alyssa pushing the attack out past the 3-point line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is not the time to install something new. If they have something that's like that, and I haven't noticed it this year, but they may, I don't know. If they have something like that, now is the time to whip it out, because I think that could be really helpful, help the Heat a lot, because their guards were not that good at stopping penetration. So the person who's best at stopping penetration is Bam Adebayo for them. It's Alyssa Thomas for Connecticut. And then you get your two bigs down at the rim, better help position. You know, you might give up some corner threes, but hopefully those corner threes are going to players, you know, Hamby and Jackie Young. And if Hamby and Jackie Young beat you, whatever. That is the way the cookie crumbles. At least you're not getting beat in the same exact way. So that's just like
I like that.
I just
like that, Coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Put me and Kurt. Let's try to install this in on the charter flight last night. I guess let's move on. Last question: is this series over in Game 3?
Boy, so many factors, Gabe. Golly, that's a tough
You spend about 50 minutes discussing.
That's what I'm saying. Lord have mercy. But I think, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna drive to the rim like Plum. Like if I get blocked, I get blocked. Yeah, whatever mentality. I think it's over, baby. I think it's over. I think the momentum that Las Vegas is playing with right now, and the way that they closed out the game in the fourth quarter after it being a one possession game. I mean, that was going to be my second question last night, but I could only get in one. It was unfortunate. But it was going to be what, you know, the mentality of that part of the game, right? Mm-hmm. When Connecticut's right there, you're at home, big game 2, right? A decisive game 3 right here on the line. And I just think the momentum and the mentality necessary to close out game 2 is going to be what they start with in game 3. And I think there's no looking back after that.
I'm trying to think, because I agree with you. This series is over. This series ends in Connecticut. Is it in game 3? Connecticut has a lot of pride. That's the thing. Like,
they do.
I don't know what they're going to do, but it's not going to look the same as it did in game 2. They may just sit on the ball for 24 seconds. And this game, you know, we could see a 4 corners whipping out, because 4 corners, toss the ball at the rim, get the offensive rebound, and just wait the clock out and win a 2-0 game. But I just think that Connecticut has to throw out everything. I think they're gonna give all out effort. I think they're gonna really, really play hard. So that's why it makes it hard for me to pick Las Vegas in game 3. However, as I mentioned, I'm going to game 3. I want to party. So I'll pick Vegas.
You want the Sham Pipple.
The 2019 championship celebration was like so fun. And then I haven't been to a finals in 2 years. Right. And I'm like, you know, I want to see the championship celebration. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, you know, I think for Vegas, they have everything rolling. So typically, though, in these playoffs, especially when it seems like a team has everything rolling, the script gets flipped. It's happened a few times in these playoffs. So I could see Connecticut winning game 3, but I'm gonna go Vegas just because of what I want, and because I just think they're so crisp right now. They just know exactly what they want to do. And I think that's gonna shine through, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think Hamby tips the scale for the Vegas Aces. I just think the absence of Jasmine Thomas and the addition of Dearica Hamby, I think, to me, that's where the scale is tipped for me in deciding on who wins game 3. But I also think, you know, when we saw Greg Popovich, the Spurs head coach, in the locker room with Becky Hammon and the Las Vegas Aces. If you haven't heard that, you have to look that up
Yeah, that
on
was fun.
media stuff on their socials. You got to look at that because, I think at the end of it, Pop said, remember what I told you about winning games on the road in the playoffs and what that is. And Becky Hammon said, it's sweeter.
It's sweeter.
Sweet. It's sweet. So, I mean, for those champions, to be standing there and saying that, I mean, it's fun. I mean, Becky Hammon won the NBA Summer League championship. So she's a champion in that way on the professional level. And then Pop with all his rings. It's like, hey, man, if you're not listening to that and that doesn't entice you, if you're Las Vegas, then something's wrong with you. I don't know. I'm fired up. It was almost, I love social media in that way because it puts you right in the locker room like that. And like what you would be thinking as a player. Maybe that's just me that like sits there and goes through the mental gymnastics of what that would feel like to hear that from those two headed to Connecticut to possibly close out the series. That to me, that just bubbles me right up. I love it.
No, I thought it was really funny when Pop was like, yeah, I just listened to everything Becky told me, and Becky like rolled her eyes. Like that's
super cute. I love that. I love it. I love it. Well, and the regard and the respect in that moment it was beautiful.
But he also said, like, I don't need to tell you guys anything. I don't think anyone needs to tell his team anything. This team is so ready. I mean, if it's game 3 or game 4, we'll see. I mean, you remember the other side has a lot of pride too, and that's what I'm getting at. Connecticut has a lot of pride. Right. So it doesn't matter if they even think they have a chance to win the series. They're going to come out and try to win that game 3.
Absolutely.
So I think it might be the best game in the series. Probably is going to be game 3 if I had to guess. Especially if Vegas wins. I think if Vegas wins, it'll be close. I think it could be. I don't know. I really have no clue. I have no clue what's going to happen here. I just think that it's more likely that the Aces play the way they did last night. Than the Sun figuring out everything.
What to do. Yeah.
For the next game.
I agree.
But the Sun did have a good game plan in game 1. I just think that relied on a lot of Kelsey Plum misses.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're not going to get those, easier possessions defensively anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it is a personal pride situation, obviously, for Connecticut. I mean, period, point blank. I mean, we know that. But for me, it's also personal pride for Las Vegas, right? Yeah. They want this championship. They've fallen short a couple seasons in a row now. I think with the addition of Becky Hammon and how she's overhauled the entire team philosophy and the trust factor is definitely locked in. It's going to be tough to beat that squad. That's all I know. But again, emotion can carry. This Connecticut team is going to be packed in there. I mean, it's sold out. I mean, game 2 was sold out in Vegas. Game 3 is sold out in Connecticut. I mean, it's going to be a tremendous atmosphere. And, I'm anxious to see how they come out. And I think it's going to be that first quarter. And Kurt Miller said, hey, we can't have flat first quarters. We've got to come out ready to go. And that's why I'm saying, like, if I'm Becky Hammon, I'm saying, hey, we're going to start this game how we finished the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you say that to a team, there's some empowerment there because that's who you are. Yep. That's what got us the win. So now you're going to encapsulate that and then move into this next game with that same momentum, start strong, finish stronger. I mean, when you present that to competitors, that's a game changer, man. That's a game changer. But also saying to Connecticut, it's hard as a coach, right, to say we've got to have a strong first quarter because they have not had that. So to tap into something that they have not done yet in the series, that's going to take a lot of leverage mentally for the players to get there because they haven't done that yet.
I just hope Vegas wins. No shade to Connecticut. I think I love what that team has done. I just want to be there for the party. That's the only thing I'm asking for.
I'm going to see you at the party too. So.
I'm not. I feel like I said on this podcast or on Spread the Floor that I was not going to Connecticut for WNBA playoff basketball. And I'm going to Connecticut for WNBA playoff basketball. I was trying to will the Mystics to the finals.
Oh man, before. It's close. Close. Game 1, Seattle.
Now I have to take a like 4-hour train to New York and then a 3-hour drive from New York to Connecticut.
Oh boy.
Yeah, instead of just the quick
You're not
30
gonna
minutes.
fly?
Huh?
Are you gonna fly? You're not
Oh,
flying?
I don't
No.
like flying. I like trains. They go on the ground.
Trains, planes, automobiles, man. However you get there.
Well, also like
are chartering and Gabe's training.
the flight to the flight to New York is actually easier on the train because then I can like switch my times. Like if I show up late, it's fine. I don't care.
Oh yeah, you get the next one.
Yeah, Amtrak's fine. Although I'm not gonna try to miss my train.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, so I think it's maybe the end of the season, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think after such a long season. And it's crazy to think that the Aces are here after, they were the favorite all season. And it's just interesting because I want to say the last 2 seasons. Actually, when did was Seattle number 1 seed in 2020?
Oh, oh my gosh.
I know
It may have been. I would have to look back 2 years ago. That was the bubble. That was the wubble.
Nope. Las Vegas was the number 1 seed.
2020?
In 2020.
Okay. And then Seattle was 2 then.
Huh? Seattle was 2.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just looking now I'm interested. Yeah, so this could be our first number 1 seed since the Mystics in 2019. Winning the title.
It's right there for them. Right there for the taking.
It's right there, and I think they're going to show up. But hey, well, strange things happen in basketball, especially in the playoffs. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about the series. I'm good. I'm ready. I'm ready to watch this in person.
Hey, I'm ready to watch it in person on my couch with my slippers on. I'll be watching, honey. But yeah, I think it'll be intriguing. They're cutting the lights out on us, Gabe. Yeah. And we're going to have to let you get this train and head on up north for what could be the WNBA championship game. Game 3 of the WNBA finals at Mohegan Sun Arena. But we got to get up out of here. It has been a joy and a pleasure to chop it up with you, my friend. And as always, make sure you subscribe, comment, and follow us on all of our social media sites and links and all that, and have some fun watching the WNBA finals. And we will bring you more information and follow up on whether or not this is the end of it on our next episode. So thank you guys for joining us today. For Gabe Ibrahim, I'm Christy Winter Scott. We'll see you next time on Courtside.